Esta serie documental presenta la investigación, la experiencia y el ejemplo de vida de hombres y mujeres, activistas de una transformación profunda en la sociedad. Sus mensajes hablan del sentido de la Tierra como sistema integral y señalan un horizonte de conciencia nueva y de mayor sensibilidad. Los invitamos a beber del manantial de sus palabras y así poder escuchar las muy diferentes voces de la Tierra.
El hermano David Steindl Rast, perteneciente a la orden benedictina, nació en Austria. Ha dedicado su vida meditativa a la escritura y al activismo pacifista. Con más de 90 años, continúa viajando y enseñando a sus oyentes a renovar sus vidas y descubrir su máximo potencial, especialmente a través de la práctica de la gratitud. Su propósito se orienta a trasladar al ámbito educativo una vida plena de significado y en armonía con los demás seres del planeta.
I had the very good fortune to grow up in the country and completely free, and we were all day long in the woods and in the mountains. Grew up in the Alps, so my two brothers and I were spending all day in nature, and the idea that nature welcomes us and that nature is our mother, that was never a question. And the other half is spirituality. And I grew up in a very Catholic Austria at that time, where simply there was nothing else but the Catholic faith, and it was part of our life, was part of our spirituality, and was also part of our relationship to nature. My closeness to nature and my closeness to spirituality, although it has very much evolved since this time, but we're from the beginning very close to one another where we live on. I've often asked myself why we are so estranged from nature, and technology seems to be the reason, the success of technology, and young people don't realize even, or don't reflect on the fact that originally everything is given to us through nature, but it is handled and manufactured through technology. I heard of little children, whether it's true or not, but it's a good story, that they came to in the country for the first time, and in a hedge they found all these milk bottles. That was at the time when there were still milk in bottles. And they said they had found the nest of the cow. Nowadays, they probably think that the milk comes from the supermarket and don't even think any further than that. I would be hoping for a technology that respects nature. That would be a very important step. For instance, what we do with in agriculture, with genetic manipulation and things like that. We need respect for the mystery of nature. We might be successful on a superficial level for a while, but the earth is going to throw us off like we would throw off lice if we had. You have to cooperate with nature, or else even the immediate success will not last. It seems to me that reconnecting with nature is probably the most important task, with the mystery that stands behind nature. And the human heart is very receptive to this mystery. Children are very receptive to it, and adults also, still, if they have the opportunity, like anybody who experiences a thunderstorm in the mountains, or one of those beautiful sunsets that we have here in the Pampas, is moved. It speaks to the human heart. This is one of the great tasks of education, to not to destroy. I was going to say to cultivate, but it's enough not to destroy the native, inborn sense of awe that children have before mystery, to cultivate it in every possible way. There's a lot of talk about re-enchantment of nature, but this word re-enchantment does not really apply, because nature is enchanted. We don't have to do anything to re-enchant nature. We have to become more sensitive to nature. In Australia, and at sunset, there are always hundreds of tourists there at the lookout point watching the sunset over this marvelous rock. And everybody was yucking, but the Japanese, you could just see the Japanese were standing, a large group, completely quiet, hands folded. Apparently in Japan, that sense of awe through Shintoism is still ingrained in people. We would have to recover it. But to be quiet in nature, this is just one little step that could go a long way. Many people today are meditating, but it is still not sufficiently widespread, and it is, of course, a luxury in the native people, the people that still live in connection with nature. Well, fine with them, they don't have this head problem. But for our type of people, our civilization that live in the head, meditation is necessary, but it is only available to those who have the time and the money to avail themselves of it. Fortunately, there are many meditation opportunities on the internet, and I think one should avail themselves, one should make them known, because people like you and me do not normally think that this is not easily available for other people. We think they just don't want it. No, they would want it if it were available for them. So meditation is the only thing I can think of that really gets you from the head into the heart or in the hara. We are in transition to a different kind of consciousness, and Ken Wilber has shown that very clearly, but also we need to make this transition and make it as fast as possible. Meditation is absolutely necessary for the change of consciousness that we are undergoing. And the faster we teach it to people and the more widespread, the better. And that is one of the great tasks of education, it seems to me. There are vast areas that concern also the transition to a new paradigm, to a new level of consciousness. That is our task, in which science cannot contribute. It has to cooperate with spirituality and with meditation. By its own program, it wants to deal with things that you can measure and weigh and count. Well, there are many things in life that you cannot measure and weigh and count, and we need somebody who works with those areas as intensively and as conscientiously as scientists are working in the other area. Little by little, there is a little more openness on both sides for this cooperation. But I see it personally as extremely important and I've been privileged to be on the point where the two meet in very exciting ways. The field of politics is probably the one where the most radical transformation will have to happen, the most obvious and the most radical. And to put it very succinctly, at the danger of oversimplifying it, I would say that our whole civilization from the beginning, so for the last 6,000 years, has been intimately tied up with power and with a power structure that I call the power pyramid. And that power pyramid has come to an end. We have had many revolutions in the course of history, but they didn't really change the power pyramid. They only saw to it that people who used to be on the bottom now got to the top. What needs to be revolutionized and changed is the whole pyramid. It has to be changed into a network of networks. And that is the great task of the future. It can be done and it will be done, or else politics or even civilization as we know it will not continue. It doesn't work because it has become self-destructive and it is run by the ego. The power pyramid is typically an ego structure. What I call the ego is not something in addition to the I and to the self, but is an I that has forgotten the self. I see it this way, the I lives in time and space, I live in time and space, but I also participate in a reality that is beyond time and space. And that aspect of myself I call the self, and the other is the I. You know this reality. When this I forgets that reality, it suddenly gets frightened because there are all these other little egos around, and so it has to defend itself. So the first thing is fear, and out of this fear comes violence. I have to defend myself. Next thing is the others are getting ahead of me, so rivalry comes in. I have to defend myself against my rivals, against those that are under me, and against my rivals that are next to me. And there may not be enough for all of us, so I get very selfish and greedy and self-serving. All this is what exactly characterizes our civilization at the moment. Violence, fear, violence, rivalry and greed. We are all oneself. How interesting, very different eyes, but all oneself. It makes the world very interesting, makes life very interesting. So I don't have to defend myself, I cooperate. So out of rivalry becomes cooperation. Out of aggression comes non-violence if you are not afraid. And out of greed comes sharing. So the network is characterized by non-violence, cooperation and sharing. And that is a complete revolution from our current one. And it means, as it has been very well put, replacing the love of power by the power of love. Because under love, I simply understand the yes to belonging. All the different forms of love have one thing in common. It is a lived yes, we belong together. Whether that is between lovers or between parents and children or between persons and their country, or between us and nature. We belong together and we say yes and act yes. That means we behave in a way that expresses this belonging, and that is love. Confronted with today's problems and the whole situation of the world, many people are very fearful, and that is dangerous and self-defeating. I think when one looks at the situation, one certainly should feel a great deal of anxiety, but anxiety is unavoidable. Fear is optional. I think it's very important to make that distinction between fear and anxiety. Anxiety, we all know how it feels. We feel it gets narrow here, and narrowness and anxiety go together, and fear is now a reaction that resists that narrowness. And again, life brings us into such situations where it's a narrow spot, as we say, and we have to learn not to resist, which would be fear, but trust in life. That is the important thing. The opposite of fear is trust. How many situations have we gone through that looked like total disaster, but they turned out to be a new birth? The more they are in touch with nature, the more they will see that they have every reason to trust life. Life does everything for us. We say we have life, and what will I do with my life? I can even take my life. And all these expressions, it's a very big question whether you have life or life has you. Both is true, but life has me much more than I have life. Life does everything for us: breathing, circulation, digestion. None of us could do it. We don't know how to do it. How do you make your heart beat? How do you breathe? You know how you take a deep breath, but you can't stop breathing. It breathes for you. If you try to hold the breath as long as you can, eventually you get unconscious and breath takes over. Life takes over. How we are, through our food, connected with the earth and with all living things. We eat earth, we eat transformed earth. We ought to look at our plate sometimes and say, now, all of this is transformed earth, we know that. Now let's see. Salt, that's simply earth. Vegetable has grown out of the earth, is transformed earth. Meat, well, the animals have eaten the vegetable, so it's once removed, but it is also earth. Everything that is there is earth, and after you have eaten it, it doesn't take very long to be back into earth. So we are constantly, all life long, transforming earth into earth. We are not all that different from one of these little earthworms that crawls and eats in the front and lets it out on the back and keeps the earth nice and loose and does very much good. I hope we can do as much good for the earth as an earthworm does. The important thing is to bring them together, and we can promote that. We can encourage people to get to know people from the groups that they are most afraid of. Do something together with them, do projects together. But getting to know the others, that is really the secret of bridging the gap. There are many people who practice this or that meditation or are engaged in spiritual interests and so forth, but they are not really in touch with themselves and in touch with nature and with life. You can look at life as at your life, your life history, as a dialogue with life, or as a dialogue with the earth, or as a dialogue with the universe. And every single moment is an opportunity for that dialogue, because every single moment, life, the universe, offers you something that has never been offered to you before, and you can open yourself to it. It is calling to you. Whatever the circumstances of your life are, they speak to you, they tell you something, so you have to be quiet and listen, and they want something from you. You can listen very carefully, and you will see, yes, they want something. It might not be immediately obvious, but every moment we say the moment requires something from us. Life requires something from us. Behind that moment in life and all the circumstances that have brought this moment about, behind all that is that great mystery. You follow the events back and you come into mystery. And by mystery I don't mean something mysterious and not very clear. It's very clear what mystery means. It is that reality which we confront constantly in life, but which we cannot grasp. Think of your experience with music. It's very obvious. Music, the essence of music, nobody can intellectually explain. And yet you say, I understand this music. You understand it on condition that it does something to you. It moves you. It touches you. We have all these expressions in which you are perfectly passive. It touched me, it moved me, it knocked me off my feet. I am the passive one. And there is something behind this that does all this to you. When you discover that you can have a personal relationship to it, you can talk to it, you can ask it things, you can listen to it, it tells you something. That is a whole new level of spirituality in which you are in personal relationship with the great mystery of the universe. On the other hand, you can't just simply say, I am God. That's not very correct. But that is the mystery within the mystery, that although we live and move and have our being in this mystery, we belong to it, not only like the fish in the water, but like the drop in the water. We are completely one with it, and yet we can have a personal relationship to it. So we are in the middle of this. We are in the middle of nature, we are in the middle of nature, as we have said. We live by nature and we keep nature going, and we are in the middle of the great mystery that stands behind it all, speaking to it and being spoken to it and being it. But we have to wake up to it, and waking up, that is the big problem.
Distintas voces, matices, percepciones sobre una misma indagación. La complejidad de la vida, la enorme velocidad de los procesos humanos, la vitalidad creativa, el entendimiento abriéndose a múltiples dimensiones, la trama misteriosa de corazones que laten al pulso de la Tierra.
C'est du bon sens en fin de compte, tu vois, c'est simplement du bon sens. Et on est en train d'aller vers un monde compliqué et difficile. On n'arrête pas, on a comme s'il y en avait on ne savait plus où était le bouton arrêt quand on n'arrive plus à arrêter la machine. Et quand tu vas dans des pays comme la Chine, ou des pays en voie de développement, qui sont, eux, dans une espèce de course, une frénésie de construire, de vendre, d'acheter, de jeter, qui est incroyable. Donc c'est une espèce de... On est un peu comme des espèces de fourmis, on ne s'arrête pas, on ne peut pas arrêter l'action de l'homme. On est dans un espèce de truc qui ne s'arrête pas, quoi.
In the context of grateful living, we have boiled it down to a very simple three-word method: stop, look, go. What you teach the children in order to safely cross the street. You have to stop. Much of our uneasiness in our civilization, uneasiness that people feel in their lives, comes from rushing. Everything is rush, 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 rush. And life offers us at every moment an opportunity. Not what you want or what you wish, but life offers you something. And you don't have to think about it, just look and listen. What is it that life offers me this moment? But in order to see that, you have to stop. You have to learn to stop. Otherwise, you are just rushing by. Next is you look for the opportunity. Now, when you have stopped, that means you are really in this moment. And in this moment now, you look what is the opportunity that this moment offers. And you will, when you practice that, you find that most of the time it's the opportunity to enjoy. Or in addition to something unpleasant, it's still the opportunity to enjoy many things that you are not paying attention to. People say, can you be grateful for everything? No, you cannot be grateful for everything. There are many, many things in this world that you cannot be grateful for. Violence, greed, destruction of the environment, or in personal lives, unfaithfulness, or lying, or whatever, oppression, exploitation. It gives you the opportunity to grow by it, to learn something, to help others. What a tremendous opportunity. Or even to protest against it. There are many things that you need to protest against. What an opportunity, how it enriches your life if you can protest. It's very easy to do that. You look at, there are many people who work collecting petitions for very important causes, for the environment, in politics, in education, in healthcare, all sorts of things that you can, if you get in the habit, you just are one of those thousands and 10,000s and sometimes millions that put themselves behind a petition. So protesting is also something, but you have to look for the opportunity. Now, when you see the opportunity, of course, you have to do something, because to see the opportunity and to do nothing, that isn't very constructive. So the stop is necessary to become aware of the opportunity, or to be even available for the opportunity. The look is necessary to see what is the opportunity, and the doing is to take the opportunity and do something with it. Happiness is what happens. You can't control that. Happiness either happens or it doesn't happen. But joy is what you get by being grateful, because it's the joy that you are cooperating with life, that you're truly yourself, truly in the present moment, and truly cooperating with life. Human dignity is, on the one hand, something that you yourself feel. You feel that you have dignity and you can't lose it. And it is also something that you give to others by your respect. One of the basic agreements is that two things have to come together in the education of a child to give that child a sense of dignity. And that is, the child has to be loved unconditionally, and that includes, when I say unconditionally already, that the uniqueness of the child is respected, and not only respected, but even encouraged. I mean, there are many wonderful teachers who applied another principle, but the system, the basic system, does not respect the uniqueness of the child and does not give the child a sense of belonging, unconditional belonging. This is one of the biggest and most difficult questions. How can you help somebody who has never been given that sense of dignity? There are millions of people who have never been given that sense of dignity. First of all, when you meet them, have to give them that feeling just by the way you look at it, by the way you think of them, before you say anything. Respect them and give them the sense, I respect you in your uniqueness, and we belong together, because everybody belongs together. By thinking about nature and by having concrete contact with nature, you get to feel nature has brought you forth. Nature affirms you in your absolute uniqueness. There never was anybody who had even the same fingerprints that you had. Now imagine your sense organs. Nobody who saw the world like you see exactly the same way. So nature affirms you in your uniqueness, and you belong to nature. When we have it, then we will also give it to others. And one thing that has been pointed out by many others about a sense of dignity, if you have that sense of dignity, you are uncorruptible, because you are not doing things, you are unique. So you are not doing things because others do it, and you belong to others, you are aware of your belonging, so you are doing nothing that will hurt others. And the main argument for corruption, or for people falling into corruption, is, well, if I don't do it and somebody else is going to do it, or everybody does it. Those are two arguments that have no force, they have no bite for somebody who has a sense of dignity. So it's extremely important to, again in education, educate a whole new generation of children that have a sense of dignity, and you will have a society in which corruption is eliminated. So sense of dignity and a world of dignity, that is what I would wish for myself most urgently. And it comes by cultivating your own dignity and remembering that you are one with all and one with nature, and that nature likes you to be so different, with all your quirks and with all your talents and with all your shortcomings, because your shortcomings are also part of your uniqueness. Dignity and a world of dignity, that would be my greatest wish.
Algunos seres humanos comienzan a sentir la necesidad biológica de estar en armonía con los demás seres vivos y de ayudar a que la inteligencia de la Tierra emerja en cada vez más individuos, de modo que juntos podamos percibir el maravilloso diseño que somos en un todo y parte de la Tierra y del universo.